The first time I heard my daughter answer someone who wasn't there, it was raining hard enough to shake the gutters loose from the house. Not thunderstorm rain, heavy, steady rain that swallowed every sound outside and turned the windows black by 6 in the evening. I remember because I was standing in the kitchen rinsing dishes when I heard 6-year-old Elira laughing upstairs. Not unusual by itself. What stopped me cold was the second voice. I couldn't make out the words. It was too muffled through the ceiling. But I heard the rhythm of conversation. Someone speaking softly, then Elira replying, then silence, then Elira giggling again. I shut off the faucet and listened harder. Another murmur, a pause. Elira, I called upstairs. The laughter stopped instantly. For a second, the entire house felt painfully still. Even the rain seemed quieter. Then I heard her bedroom door creak open. Tiny footsteps crossed the hallway above me. She leaned over the staircase railing in her dinosaur pajamas and stared down at me with a strange expression I still can't fully explain. Not fear, not guilt, more like confusion that I'd interrupted something important. "You said something?" she asked. "Who are you talking to?" Her eyes shifted behind her, toward the dark hallway. Then she shrugged. "My friend." "What's your friend's name?" She hesitated too long. Then she answered quietly. She doesn't like when people ask that. That night, after I tucked her in, I checked every room upstairs anyway. Under the beds, inside the bathroom, closets, windows locked, nothing. But when I reached her closet door, I noticed something strange. The carpet inside was damp. Then I noticed the smell. Earth, like freshly dug dirt after a storm. Behind me, Elira spoke from the bed in a whisper. "You shouldn't stand there too long." I turned toward her. "Why?" She pulled the blanket higher over her chest. "Because she watches people from inside." Over the next week, the conversations continued. Always upstairs. Always when Elira thought I couldn't hear. At first, I tried convincing myself it was harmless. Kids create worlds to cope with loneliness all the time, especially after moving somewhere new. The house in Belcross wasn't exactly lively. One narrow road, dense woods behind the property, no neighboring houses visible from our yard. Just silence, but little things kept bothering me. I'd hear Elira pause during conversations as if listening carefully to responses. Sometimes she nodded. Sometimes she whispered, "Okay," or "I won't tell him." One afternoon, I caught her sitting cross-legged in the upstairs hallway, facing the empty corner beside the attic ladder, completely still. Her eyes focused upward, like someone stood there talking down to her. "Elira?" She lifted a finger without looking at me. "Wait," she whispered. "She's not done." "Honey, there's nobody there." That finally made her look at me, and I swear to God, she looked embarrassed for me. "Yes, there is." Then her expression changed suddenly. Not playful, not imaginative, concerned. "She says you keep pretending not to see her." "Who says that?" "The lady in the wall." The hallway suddenly felt too narrow. Elira pointed directly beside us. The drywall there had a thin, vertical crack running from ceiling to floor. "She comes out at night," Elira said softly, "but only if it's quiet enough." I stood immediately. "Okay, that's enough spooky stories. There is no lady." The silence afterward was awful. Elira lowered her eyes. Then she whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. "She said you'd say exactly that." That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house sounded deliberate. Every settling noise felt like movement. Around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of soft footsteps crossing the upstairs hallway. Slow, dragging slightly. I checked the baby monitor on my phone. Elira's bed was empty. I found her standing directly in front of the cracked wall, motionless, her head tilted upward. "Elira," I whispered. She didn't respond. "She wants to know why you're awake." Every hair on my arms rose instantly. "Elira," She says you're making her nervous. I grabbed her shoulders and turned her toward me. Her face looked pale in the dim light, but her eyes were fixed somewhere behind me. Then she whispered, "She's standing right next to you." I turned around so fast, I nearly slipped on the hardwood floor. Nothing, just the dark hallway stretching toward the staircase. But I heard breathing, not mine, slow, uneven, wet. The sound came from inside the wall. I froze. The crack in the drywall seemed darker somehow, like the shadow inside it had deepened. Then came a faint scratching noise. I grabbed Alara and carried her downstairs immediately. She didn't resist. She just kept looking over my shoulder toward the hallway the entire way down. I locked every door, even though that made no sense. Then we stayed on the couch with every light in the living room turned on until sunrise. Elira eventually fell asleep curled beside me, but sometime around dawn, she stirred and murmured something through half-conscious breaths. She doesn't like bright rooms. The next morning, I called a contractor. I told him I thought there might be rodents or water damage inside the upstairs wall. By noon, a heavy-set guy named Corvin arrived with tools and a flashlight. 10 minutes later, I heard him stop moving. Then silence. Then footsteps descending the stairs, very slowly. There's definitely hollow space back there. How much? He hesitated. More than there should be. Because there's empty square footage between the hallway and your daughter's room. How big? Big enough for a person. That sentence stayed trapped in my head the rest of the day. But deep down, another thought had already rooted itself inside me. What if someone was living in there? That possibility became horrifyingly real around midnight, because I woke up to Elira screaming. Not crying, screaming in pure terror upstairs. I sprinted into her room and found her standing on the bed, pointing toward the closet. The closet door was open, and inside, in the darkness near the back wall, someone was breathing. I didn't think. I reacted. I grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed and swung the closet light on. The breathing stopped instantly. The closet was empty, just hanging clothes, shoes, plastic storage bins. But Elira was hysterical now. She was in there, she cried. She was crouching there. I checked every inch of the closet. Then I found it. Behind a stack of old moving boxes, the drywall had been cut open. Cold air drifted from inside, and that smell returned. Wet dirt, rotting earth. My pulse became violent. There was a narrow hidden passage between the walls. Dust coated the floor, except for one section. Fresh footprints, bare, human footprints, leading deeper into darkness. I called the police immediately. 2 deputies searched the hidden space for nearly an hour. They found tunnels running behind parts of the upstairs walls and attic insulation areas large enough for someone to move through unseen. But they found nobody. Nothing except strange things left behind. Bundles of dead flowers tied with black thread, tiny animal bones arranged in circles, and children's drawings. Dozens of them. But one drawing made my blood run cold. A little girl standing beside a tall woman with black scribbles for eyes. Above them, written in shaky crayon, "She talks when Daddy sleeps. Your daughter draw this." No, but even as I said it, I wasn't sure, because the little girl in the drawing had long dark curls, exactly like Elira, because Elira refused to stop staring at the hallway ceiling. "She's angry now," she whispered. I knelt in front of her. "Honey, nobody is in this house." "She is. Listen to me." "She said you closed her door." Then my daughter began speaking in another voice. "You weren't supposed to find me yet." Then she smiled, a smile I had never seen before, and whispered, "She misses the sound." The next morning, I packed bags. I didn't care if I sounded irrational anymore. I just wanted out of that house. But before we could leave, Deputy Vale returned with information about the previous owners, and everything became worse. The family who lived there before us had disappeared 11 years earlier. Not moved, disappeared. Mother, father, daughter. The daughter was around your kid's age, he said. My chest tightened immediately. What was her name? He checked his notebook. Maren. The name hit me strangely hard because I'd heard Elira whisper it once in her sleep 3 nights earlier. Neighbors reported hearing the little girl talking to herself a lot before the family vanished. The kitchen suddenly felt airless. The father called police multiple times, claiming someone was living inside the walls. A cold pressure spread through my stomach. The father disappeared first. I looked toward the staircase instinctively. What about the mother? She lasted another 8 days. That night, Elira refused to leave her bedroom. She doesn't want me downstairs anymore, she said. Who? Maren. The name struck me like ice water. I crouched beside her slowly. Where did you hear that name? A loud bang exploded upstairs from inside the walls. Another bang, then another. Something moving fast behind the drywall. Then suddenly, silence. A long silence. 3 slow taps directly beside her bed, and a woman's voice whispered from inside the drywall, Elira, open the door. We left immediately after that. I drove 20 miles to a motel off Route 9 without even packing properly. Elira barely spoke during the drive. She just kept glancing at the rearview mirror like someone sat in the back seat with us. At the motel, she finally asked something that made my skin crawl. If she follows us, will you still hear her? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every tiny motel sound jolted me awake. Ice machine humming, footsteps overhead, distant television static through thin walls. Around 4 a.m., my phone rang. Deputy Vale. His voice sounded strained. We found something behind your property. An hour later, I stood in freezing dawn fog beside the woods behind the house, while officers aimed flashlights toward a collapsed patch of earth near the tree line. There was a hidden underground chamber beneath the property. Small, cramped, handmade. Inside were children's toys dating back decades. Someone had lived there for years. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the tunnel leading from the chamber toward the house foundation. Forensics found fingerprints all over the tunnel. Whose? He swallowed. The missing mother's. I stared at him. That's impossible. They're fresh. Then another officer emerged carrying a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a photograph. Suddenly my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I answered instinctively. At first there was only static, then breathing. The exact sound from inside the walls, and softly beneath it, Elira's voice. Daddy, she found me. I spun toward the police car instantly. The back seat was empty. The next 6 hours barely feel real. Search teams combed the woods. State police arrived. Dogs tracked scent trails that disappeared near the house foundation. I couldn't breathe properly. Every second felt stretched apart by panic. Then one officer shouted from inside the house. They'd found movement in the wall tunnels. I followed them upstairs, despite Vale trying to stop me. The sealed closet opening had been ripped back open from the inside, not broken outward, inward, like someone had dragged the drywall away while crawling deeper into darkness. One officer crawled inside with a flashlight. 30 seconds later, he screamed. Not a tactical shout, not surprise, pure terror. They pulled him out shaking violently. He kept repeating, "There's someone down there." The tunnel was too narrow for multiple people, so before anyone could stop me, I crawled inside myself. The space smelled unbearable. Wet dirt, mold, human sweat. The beams overhead groaned softly while I dragged myself deeper beneath the house. Then I heard Elira crying somewhere ahead. I called her name repeatedly until the tunnel opened into a larger, hidden chamber beneath the foundation. And there she was, standing in darkness, facing the corner. Elira, she turned slowly. Her face looked wrong somehow, emotionless, drained. She says we can stay here forever. I rushed toward her. Then something moved behind her. A woman stepped partially into the dim flashlight beam. Tall, filthy, skin pale gray beneath layers of dirt, long wet hair hanging across her face. But it was her eyes that destroyed me. The woman smiled slowly, and suddenly I understood. Not a ghost, not supernatural. The missing mother, still alive, living beneath the house for 11 years, watching through the walls. "You took my place," she whispered hoarsely. My blood froze. She tilted her head toward Elira. "She gets lonely." Then she lunged at me. "The police said I killed her in self-defense." That part barely exists clearly in my memory anymore. Just screaming, dirt collapsing, flashlights, Elira crying somewhere behind me. The woman died beneath the house she'd hidden inside for over a decade. But even after they removed the tunnels, even after the house was demolished, even after months of therapy, something never fully ended. Because Elira still talks to someone at night. Not often, but enough. Sometimes I wake up and hear whispering through her bedroom wall in our new apartment. Soft conversations after midnight, and every single time I ask who she's talking to. She gives the same answer. Maren. At first I thought trauma had damaged her somehow, until last month, when I walked past her room and heard two distinct voices again. One was Elira's, the other was older, a woman whispering softly from somewhere I couldn't see. I opened the door immediately. The room was empty, except for Elira, sitting on the floor drawing quietly. I asked who she was talking to. She looked up slowly, then pointed toward the heating vent beside her bed and smiled. She followed us home. The strange part isn't that I believe my daughter anymore. The strange part is that sometimes late at night, I hear breathing inside the vents too. And if you've ever lived somewhere that felt wrong after dark, maybe don't ask yourself what's inside the walls. Because some things survive by being forgotten. And once they know a child can hear them, they never really leave.